Wait, don't skip this, because if this message reached you, something is about to change in your life. Not later, not someday, soon. And you've already started to feel it. Things have been shifting. Situations feel different. People feel different. Even your thoughts don't feel the same anymore. At first, it felt confusing, like something was off, like things weren't working the way they used to. But what if that's not a problem? What if it's preparation for something bigger? Because before something changes for you, something changes within you. And that part isn't always comfortable. It can feel like things are falling apart, like you're losing control, like nothing is going the way you planned. But that's exactly where most people get it wrong. They think it's the end, when it's actually the beginning. Because before the blessing comes, there's always a moment like this. A moment where everything feels uncertain. A moment where you question everything. And if you don't understand it, you might walk away right here. But if you stay, you'll see what this really means. So don't rush past this. Stay here, because what comes next might explain everything you've been going through. The first thing you need to understand is this. What you're feeling right now is not random. It's not confusion, it's not bad luck, and it's definitely not everything falling apart. Even though it might feel that way. Because when things start shifting, they rarely feel comfortable at first. You start noticing changes. Things that used to work don't feel the same anymore. People who once felt close start feeling distant. Situations that felt stable suddenly feel uncertain. And your first reaction is to fix it, to hold on, to go back to how things were. But what if you're not supposed to? What if this isn't something to fix, but something to understand? Because before anything grows, something has to shift. And that shift doesn't always feel good. It feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, sometimes even frustrating, because you're stepping out of something that no longer fits you, even if you're not fully ready to leave it yet. And that's where the tension comes from. Not because something is wrong, but because something is changing. And right now, you're in that exact moment. The part where things don't make sense yet, but they're not the same anymore either. And that's the beginning. And this is the part most people don't understand. When things start to change like this, it's not just a shift. It's a test. Not to break you, but to prepare you. Because before anything meaningful is given to you, you're placed in a moment like this. A moment where nothing feels certain. A moment where things don't go the way you expected. A moment where you start to question everything. And that's where the test begins. Not outside of you, but inside you. How do you respond when things don't make sense? How do you react when things feel out of your control? Do you panic? Do you give up? Do you try to go back to what's comfortable, even if it no longer fits you? Or do you stay? Do you trust that something is happening, even if you don't fully understand it yet? Because this part, this uncomfortable, uncertain space, is where most people turn back. They leave too early. They walk away before they see the reason. They quit right before things begin to shift in their favor. And that's why they never reach what was waiting for them. Not because it wasn't meant for them, but because they didn't stay long enough. And right now, you're standing in that same place, the point where you either keep going or go back to what feels safe. And that choice is what determines what comes next. And this is where it starts to feel heavy. Not because something is wrong, but because something real is happening. This is the part where everything feels unclear, where you don't have answers, where things don't make sense yet. And that uncertainty is uncomfortable, because you're used to knowing, used to control, used to things moving in a way you understand. But now, you don't have that. And that's what makes it difficult. Because you start asking yourself, why is this happening? Why now? Why does everything feel off? And the hardest part? There's no immediate answer, just silence. And in that silence, your mind starts to fill the space with doubt, with fear, with overthinking. You start imagining worst-case scenarios. You start questioning your decisions. You even start questioning yourself. And that's where most people break. Not because they're weak, but because the uncertainty feels too heavy. So they try to escape it. They rush decisions. They go back to what's familiar. They avoid the discomfort. Because staying here feels too hard. But what they don't realize is, this is the exact moment that matters most. Because this pressure, this confusion, this discomfort is shaping something inside you. Something stronger, something more aware, something more ready. Even if you can't see it yet. And right now, you're in that exact moment. The part that feels the hardest, but means the most. And this is where everything begins to shift. Not because the situation changes, but because your perspective does. Because up until now, you've been seeing this as a problem. Something going wrong, something not working. But what if it's not meant to work the way it used to? What if this is happening on purpose? Not to stop you, but to prepare you. Because the version of you that's about to step into something greater can't be the same version that started this journey. It just can't. Something has to change. Your thinking, your reactions, your understanding, even your patience. And that kind of change doesn't happen in comfort. It happens here, in this space where things feel uncertain, where you don't have all the answers, where you're forced to slow down and actually see what's happening. Because now, you're not just reacting anymore. You're starting to understand. You're starting to notice things you ignored before. Patterns, feelings, truths. And that awareness is what shifts everything. Because now, you're not asking, why is this happening to me? You're starting to ask, what is this trying to teach me? And that question changes everything. And once you start seeing it that way, something inside you begins to relax. Not because everything is fixed, but because it finally makes sense. You're no longer fighting the moment. You're not trying to force things back to how they were. You're allowing this phase to be what it is. And that changes how it feels. The pressure starts to ease. The confusion isn't as loud. Because now, you understand something important. This isn't happening to you. It's happening for you, even if it doesn't look like it yet. even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Because growth like this doesn't always feel good in the moment. It stretches you. It challenges you. It pulls you out of what's familiar. But it also shows you what you're capable of. It makes you stronger, more aware, more prepared, in ways you didn't even realize you needed. And that's why this phase matters. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because what's coming next requires a version of you that's being built right now, even in the parts that feel uncertain, even in the parts that feel uncomfortable, especially in those parts. Because that's where the real change happens. And when you start moving with that understanding, everything begins to feel different. Not because the situation changes immediately, but because you do. You stop resisting the process. You stop trying to control every outcome, and you begin to trust what's unfolding. Even if you can't see the full picture yet, even if you don't have every answer, because now you're not acting out of fear. You're moving with awareness, and that changes everything. You make different choices. You respond differently. You don't react the same way you used to, because you're not the same anymore. You've grown, even in ways you didn't notice at first. And that growth is what prepares you for what's coming next. Because what's ahead isn't meant for the old version of you. It's meant for who you're becoming now. And that's why this phase had to happen. Not to slow you down, but to get you ready. Ready to step into something you couldn't have handled before. Something bigger. Something that requires exactly who you're becoming. And now, you're closer than you think. And the more you stay in that space, the more everything begins to align. Not all at once, but in a way you can feel. Things start to make sense. Not perfectly, but clearly enough. You're no longer questioning every step. You're no longer doubting every feeling. Because now, you trust what you've learned. You trust what you've felt. And most importantly, you trust yourself. And that changes how you move. You're not rushing anymore. You're not forcing outcomes. You're allowing things to unfold with patience, with awareness. And that kind of movement is different. It's steady. It's grounded. It doesn't break under pressure because it's built on understanding. And from that place, you begin to notice something. Opportunities feel closer. Clarity feels stronger. And the uncertainty doesn't feel as heavy anymore. Because now you're not lost in it. You're moving through it. And that's the difference. Because when you move like this, you're not just waiting for something to happen. You're becoming ready for it. And that readiness is what changes everything. And the more you stay in that space, the more everything begins to align. Not all at once, but in a way you can feel. Things start to make sense. Not perfectly, but clearly enough. You're no longer questioning every step. You're no longer doubting every feeling. Because now, you trust what you've learned. You trust what you've felt. And most importantly, you trust yourself. And that changes how you move. You're not rushing anymore. You're not forcing outcomes. You're allowing things to unfold with patience, with awareness. And that kind of movement is different. It's steady. It's grounded. It doesn't break under pressure because it's built on understanding. And from that place, you begin to notice something. Opportunities feel closer, clarity feels stronger, and the uncertainty doesn't feel as heavy anymore. Because now you're not lost in it, you're moving through it. And that's the difference. Because when you move like this, you're not just waiting for something to happen, you're becoming ready for it. And that readiness is what changes everything.